everyone, welcome to Fin Business. We are in conversation with Shreekant from COPC. So to start with Shreekant, the banks and the insurance companies and every service company actually claims that okay, they have the better customer service, but the number of complaints against the company from the customers are really high.
Yeah.
So in this particular regard, specifically when the digital is growing, what kind of advice do you offer to the banks, finance companies to improve their customer service?
I think everybody, it's a no-brainer. Everybody understands that customer experience is the next frontier. Everybody wants to, fight on that frontier and win the battle as such. I think there is enough focus on customer experience, so to say. And people want to make sure that the customer experience gets better and better. We did a small survey across different aspects of customer experience for 4 countries, for India, for China, for Australia and for Singapore. We wanted to see how things are in Asia Pac specifically. Right. And what is interesting is that across all countries, the customer experience is kind of similar in terms of the responses that we received. In India, the Net Promoter Score, as people use in some cases, is much higher as compared to the other countries. Now that could be because the maturity level of the industry is such that even if you do a little bit things, people are happy about it, and in Singapore or in Australia there is already an expectation that it should be better. We also looked at what is called customer effort score, and almost all regions showed a similar trend. So on a scale of 1 to 7, 6 considered to be higher. Almost all regions and almost all the banks, even within India, and this is I'm not separating the private sector and public sector. They all are around that same thing. So they are making the customer's life easier to get their issue resolved, and that seems to be one of the main areas of concern. Now, coming to your specific question about complaints and things like that, what is happening is that because you have multiple channels, people can vent their dissatisfaction right out there in social media. So managing social media becomes a much larger issue, right? And I don't think we are doing enough in terms of creating strategies around those different channels and how do you handle them. I think we were talking about this earlier. Most of the banks, they have some Facebook page or messenger. When you write to them, even if you write about asking, how do I open a new account, you don't really get an answer. Most of the times the answer is either too late or the answer that you get is call up our call center. So it's not really a channel that is used to engage with the customers. And I think that is the next place where people would like to work.
There are many companies, branding themselves that, okay, you just get an insurance policy within 4 minutes. But unfortunately, you don't get a claim even in 40 days. IRDA has some mandates that you should get a claim in these particular days. But if you look at the amount of or the number of papers that you have to submit, you will not be getting that claim within a month because, at least there are some 10, 14 documents that you have to submit. So why only, the process of selling the products is more easy than, offering a better service to the customer?
I would say that just because the industry that we're talking about, banking and FI as such, is a highly regulated industry. So there are lots of areas that you have to do. I mean, you want to differentiate, but I always say this, and my banking clients hate us for saying that it's a commodity business, right? You can't make too many changes. You have too many controls, and you have to play in that. In insurance, there have been some attempts, right? In P2P, for example, Lemonade is a classic example. Their claim to fame is that you will get an insurance claim process within 3 minutes, and you can file a new one by the time you finish your Lemonade. That's why they're called Lemonade, by the way. But it cannot be done for several types of products that you have. You could either have a traditional bank and have attached digital channels to it, and that is one strategy. But then you can also have a business model where it's a completely digital bank, and In that case, you don't really have any brick and mortar presence.
Yes.
You have limited products and services there, right? You get limited because you can't really offer a lot of stuff. And there have been some successful attempts, especially in Indonesia, in India, in Asia Pac, where people have come up with an entirely digital bank as such. Maybe only a little bit 10% that needs to be done with brick and mortar.
Here, and if you could elaborate more on that particular topic. So when they're coming with the direct digital bank, where there is no branch where a customer can go to a branch
Just
manager or a branch employee and find out what is my problem. There is no physical communication. How actually, or what kind of solutions they offer? How actually they manage that entire service?
Yeah, so there have been some examples, and I can't tell you the names right now in terms of the clients, but they have been, and you would probably know them. But DBS tried with Digibank and things like that, where you could have just a set of services. For example, you can get a loan, and the loan is a limited liability loan for 7%, something like that, and that's the only thing that you get. Right? There is nothing else. You don't have anything else. You don't have credit cards. You don't have anything else. That's the only thing. You go onto the app and you buy that, and that's pretty much. Having said that, they still had a challenge, because if something doesn't go through, you still need somebody to manage the escalations.
Right.
Their point was that for a normal bank, it will take you 300, 400 people to manage the escalations. They have 20 people.
Right.
So that is kind of still something that is a saving grace in this entire.
Digital solutions are easy, but offering digital service, customer service,
it will still have,
that.
right? See, what happens is that you will always have some bit of work which will require some manual intervention, and no matter how much AI and chatbot would come in, there is, by the nature of interactions that happen between humans, there would be some part which will be exception management. Look at other industries, for example, telecom, right? So there are companies where they have a vision where they say that 80% of my work will be non-assisted. Unassisted. There won't be anybody who will do it. The customer will do it self-service, self-help. 20% they can still contact us. Now this is still a tall expectation, because currently, if you see, most of the companies are the other way around, right? But at least there should be some strategy. There should be some action planning around it. And that was my actually last point I was talking to you about. That it's not magic. It's not going to happen just like that. One day you close your eyes and you open and you say, oh, suddenly we are in digital era, and there will be customer delight. You have to work towards it. It's a discipline. Right. There are some, there are areas that you need to work on. There are tools, there are techniques. And it's not just that creating a fancy map. It's actually identifying what the customers go through. You cannot satisfy everybody at all the time. You will have to prioritize. You will have to identify, okay, these are my customers, right? And different banks will have different focus areas. I think that is where the differentiation will.
Is important,
right?
But again, the last point that I would like to take more understanding from you is a call center.
Okay.
You have a product, you sold the product, but you have outsourced your call center,
to
you outsourced your services
party?
to call center, so that someone else will take care of it.
Sure.
So it's as simple as that you give him product, but someone else will do a maintenance, and you don't know how that maintenance will be done.
Correct.
So most of the complaints, most of the people that we see have been frustrated with the call center replies. The query is resolved is the major answer they get when the query is not even taken up at the action, and they don't know even whom to reach, whom to target. In this particular situation, what is the advice that you make? What is the trend that you see globally? Because it's even difficult for people to reach to a right authority.
I understand that. I think that's a very valid point. I have three things to talk about.
Please.
The first one is, I think a lot of times what happens is that people, they try to focus on things that don't really matter to customer.
Right.
For example, picking up a call in a certain amount of time. While it's important to do that, we have found that companies, even larger banks, right? They have, so typically the expectation is that 80% of your calls should be answered within 60 seconds. We find in our audits, and we have a sizable database now, almost 50% of our clients don't meet this number, and yet they have good customer satisfaction.
Yes.
What that means is, in most cases, the customers are ready to wait a little longer if they know that after they are talking to somebody, their problem will get solved. Right? Absolutely. So issue resolution kind of becomes primary, and only now we are seeing more and more focus around that. Right. People still talk about service levels and picking up the phone call quickly, but the point is you solve the customer's issue. So those are the areas where companies have to work on. I think that is my typically if we are working with clients, that's what we try to help with, right? One is of course the marketing and branding and all of that on customer experience.
Yes.
But the more important part is that it's like running an airport, right? You have to make sure that every single time you do it right. There has to be consistency. We don't want heroes.
Yes.
We want a process so that the customer, right, can get his problem solved.
The solution.
We want a solution.
Yes, because we don't want to actually listen to that automated answers, that press this and press that, and perhaps that press this and press that doesn't include what you want to say.
Right.
So that is the most frustrating part.
That's one of the actually biggest problems with chatbots.
Yes,
okay?
absolutely.
40% of the people who have used chatbot and found that it's a chatbot have said that I don't want to use it anymore. Because I know that it's it's a chatbot and it's not something that it's very robotic. Now that just shows that a bad implementation of a channel can turn the customers away, right? And that is something that you don't want. You want cutting edge technology. You don't want bleeding edge technology, right? You want something that will make the customers experience better. You want them to continue to giving them different channels and having proliferation of channels doesn't necessarily make that. Right? And sometimes you have to give channels because your competitors give those, right? But that doesn't mean that your customers will keep on coming to you, right? Unless there is some value, there is something that they are finding out of it. And in banks especially, this is increasingly difficult. Because it's commodity, it's increasingly difficult to differentiate from one bank to another, right? And I think where the focus will come in is specifically identifying customers, right? And their customer journeys and giving them in that customer journey. That's probably the only way, right, for bankers to kind of find a niche for themselves and grow the business. I think that's typically what we work with them on.
Importantly, last point, what is the trend that you see in customer service going ahead, in specifically financial sector? What are the new changes? Because chatbots is coming, so many things banks are adopting, digitalism, they're embracing digital and they're talking about customer delight, but in reality we know what it is. So what do you think will be the major change in customer service?
I think in the near term there won't be too much of an impact, right? The only thing would be there would be a lot of confusion and there would be a lot of channels. It will hopefully ease the life of the customer to a certain extent because you have multiple channels. Going forward, I don't see the banking experience as such will change significantly unless there is a completely disruptive model that comes in, right? It's just like any other industry. Most of the industry, and we need to understand, banking is not it's not a lifestyle industry as such. It's not like a travel or media or whatever. So the satisfaction with this will always be a little lesser. People are doing a lot of things, right? And I think we saw some of those examples, like Capital One has their cafe. They're trying to create an experience for customers, right? So when you go in there, you're not going to a branch, but you are going to a library or a cafe. You sit there for half a day and do your stuff. So just like you go to a Chayo's or a cafe coffee day or a Starbucks, you go to a Capital One cafe. And if that is something that can create a little bit more brand loyalty and things like that, maybe that's something that we should look for.
So all right, Shreekant, thank you so much for sharing those insights. It was wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much.